Good afternoon and welcome to everybody to the North American Bear Center. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 12:30, we typically do our bear broadcast program, which also typically includes some bear enrichment. However, you typically do need a bear to do this program, and to do the enrichment, you certainly would need a bear. So as of this moment, we've not seen Holly Bear this morning. She has been quite effective and also not very cooperative. That's pretty typical of Holly Bear. She's not our most cooperative or best listener, so to speak. All the bears have selective hearing, but Holly's is by far the most selective. Tasha and Lucky are extremely food motivated right now and will be readily led just about anywhere with some food. We just have a bit of an issue we're trying to fix in the main enclosure, some maintenance that has to do with our waterfalls. Notice the big middle one is not flowing, and you probably can't notice the other problem, which is the loud whining the one motor is creating. The sound of the waterfall kind of drowns it, but in the rest of the enclosure, you can hear it quite well. So if we can hear it, you know the bears can hear it, as their sensitivity and hearing is far above and below our sensitivity. And so we'd like to get those pumps fixed, both the noises that they're making and get our high falls on. So because we haven't seen Holly this morning, and because of the past few days when we have found her, she's been rather dirty or muddy, we're pretty sure Holly is digging. Black bears typically only dig for two reasons: food or to make a den. Now, this time of year, and because our bears are captive and well-fed, the digging part would be a little bit more unusual. She can and will dig for food, as do all of our bears here in the Bear Center. However, it was probably more likely that she is creating a den structure for the winter. Bears go through a winter dormancy, and I know in first grade we were all told that bears are hibernators, but in fact, technically speaking, or scientifically speaking rather, they are not a true hibernator. What a bear does in the winter would be more appropriately described as a torpor. There's two main reasons for that. Technically speaking, or again, scientifically speaking, the definition of hibernation would be a controlled state of hypothermia, meaning the animal's internal body temperature willingly goes down drastically. So let's talk about a chipmunk, who is a true hibernator. They live in the ground, and they store food all winter long, and come fall and early winter, they go into a true hibernation, where all of their metabolic processes cut drastically. This includes their internal body temperature, which may fluctuate, but is usually around 40 degrees Fahrenheit through the winter. That's extremely cold. If a human body is 40 degrees Fahrenheit, even for more than a minute, you'd be dead. And so, again, we don't have the ability to hibernate in that way. Hibernation is an adaptation to times of food shortage, and that time is very long here in the Northland if you're a rodent such as a chipmunk. So they go into a deep sleep where, again, most of their body is mostly turned off. Its only functions are kept on to keep the chipmunk alive, and every 2 to 3 weeks it may wake up and eat a little bit of that stored food that it's spent the whole spring, summer, and fall saving. Now let's compare that to black bears. Their internal body temperature only drops at a maximum about 12 degrees. So a normal operating summertime body temperature internally for a black bear is about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Through the winter, it might get as low as 88 degrees. Now, that's not a very significant drop at all, and would not match our definition of hibernation, which again is that controlled state of hypothermia. Bears do not get their internal body temperature low enough to be considered hypothermic. So this allows them to be rather active because their body temperature is so high. They can move around. They don't actually sleep through the winter like a lot of people think that they do. In fact, we used to think that since mother bears do give birth in those winter dens, that they're just surprised come spring and they have 3 brand new cubs. Unfortunately for those mother bears, they are active all winter long, and especially with the birth of brand new cubs. None of those cubs sleep at the same time, need to be fed at the same time. It's all constant interaction and care that is needed for those bears. So the poor female bears, they probably get no sleep whatsoever. Now, male bear, since they do not hibernate with each other, females and males, a male bear will hibernate alone, and in this area, or go into that torpor rather, in this area for about 6 to 7 months. That's quite a long time to be by yourself in a dark hole. So the males do probably do a good amount of sleeping, but again, the females are caring for typically the cubs that will be born in January in this area, and then those offspring will stay with mother all through the following spring, summer, and fall, and enter another den for the following fall, and they will stay a whole other winter with her, and they will be kicked out in spring. So it's a 2-year reproductive cycle for black bears. And those cubs or yearlings, depending on which stage of life they're in, will spend anywhere from 16 to about 17 months on average with their mother before she kicks them out or they disperse on their own. That is actually the other part of why black bears are not considered true hibernators. They do give birth in that winter den. So their internal body temperature and their activity level when it concerns birthing new black bears is what considers them not to be true hibernators, but rather more of what we'd call a torpor. Another way to look at it is if you were to knock on the door of a bear den, so to speak, in the winter, they would be there to greet you. If you were to knock on the door of a chipmunk's den in the winter, there would be no answer. You could break down the door, break into that den, take the chipmunk out, pass it around, take some selfies with it, put it back. It probably wouldn't know you were there. However, if you did that to the bears and you knocked on that door, again, they would be there to greet you, and they probably wouldn't be too happy with you either. We've seen that with our captive or ambassador bears here at the center, that once they decide it's time to be done for the year, they do not like any kind of ruckus around the entrance of their dens. They are rather annoyed by that kind of behavior. And so the bears kind of tell us when it's time to be done for the year. We usually get to the third weekend of October before we close down, but if the bears decide that the first weekend of October is their last weekend of being up, well, then that's that. So they kind of get to dictate how that works sometimes. Now, because ours are captively cared for and fed, we can kind of adjust schedules and have a kind of a assumption of when that would be. And again, characteristically, that is towards the end of October, usually the third or fourth weekend of October. So we have Tasha in the first private enclosure off to the right, and she is ready to come on out. Again, because we needed to work on the pumps, we have to get the bears in. To do that, for whatever reason, the construction workers aren't too keen on working alongside the bears. I know, weird, right? So we do have to get them in their smaller enclosures in order to allow the work to be done. And so, again, as I mentioned before, we've been trying all morning to get Holly in, and we have failed. She hasn't even been seen, to my knowledge, at all today. So she's doing a job at digging, and maybe even already completed digging her den, because that would explain why we can't find her. She may be sitting in it in the interior of the enclosure. It's a 2.5 acre enclosure, and believe it or not, that is a pretty big space. And even though these bears are 300 to 500 pounds, they can hide really easily when they want to. In fact, that surprises me somewhat regularly how easily Lucky, our 500-pound male, if he doesn't want to be seen, how hard it can be to actually find him, even when we get into the fall time and the leaves drop off the trees and you can see much deeper and further into the all three bears have an easy time hiding from us when they want to. So it's quite remarkable, actually. That's one thing that never ceases to amaze me about them, how elusive such a large animal can be when it wants to be. Well, folks that are here today and those of you tuning in online, and I will remind the folks that are here today, if you do ever want to check up on the bears, you can check out our live cams at bear.org. They are perfectly free, and as long as you have internet service or access, you are able to access our live cams. We currently have the pond cam, which we do all the programs on in the broadcasting and captures all the fun, playful events the bears have through the course of the summer in the pond. Then we also have the mound cam up and running at the moment, both of which can move. And they do follow the bears around. So if you're interested, again, we have to have one of the easiest websites to remember, bear.org. And there's a tab at the top that says Live Cams. Just click there, and it'll give you a variety of options to choose from. We will have more cams going up in the future. Not exactly sure. Future is a pretty broad term. Not specifically sure when those things will be ready to go. But we do plan to have many more so that there are hopefully always a bear in view on one of those cams. And thank you for those of you tuning in on those cams today. Those broadcast all over the world, like I said, so sometimes we have people tuning in from different parts of the world, and we do appreciate you tuning in and coming in. I do apologize for not having a bear down. Again, this program is kind of up to them. We don't want to force our bears to do anything here at the North American Bear Center. That wouldn't be right to an animal that we're caretaking for. We allow the bears to kind of choose what they want to do. We'll give them treats and ask them to do things, and should they do those things, they will be rewarded with more treats. But it's really up to them what they're going to do. And if Holly decides she's not coming in or being seen for the next 2 days, well, that's Holly's prerogative. That does fall onto the staff to be the ones to pick up the slack there and try to get her in. But again, if she doesn't want to come in, there's nothing we can physically do about it. We're not going to go in there and grab them by the scruff and drag them down to the enclosure they go in because, none of us can do that. None of us are even close to the strength that a black bear has. They can quite easily flip 50 to 70-pound rocks with a literal flick of their wrist. It's really nothing for them to move some of the big boulders around in the enclosure that we have. And same with the logs and rocks. So grabbing them and pulling them definitely isn't an option. And obviously, again, we wouldn't do that either. There's a little bit of an inherent risk going in an enclosure with an animal that is much larger than you. But we wouldn't do that because we are a hands-off facility. We try to keep it as natural as possible for our bears here at the North American Bear Center. And that includes them living a natural life separate from us humans. So they do get to wander around and do whatever they want. And currently, Holly is deciding not only is she not going to show up for the broadcast program, but she may not show up at all today. We will be trying to get her in shortly after the program, and should she arrive down in the viewing area windows, we will announce that stuff. For those of you here today, if you were hoping to try to get some good pictures or anything like that of a bear down front without a fence or a window in your way, again, anytime they do show up, and again, we will be going out and trying to get Holly in potentially, and then we get those pumps looked at, and then we can let the bears out right after. We did get our first freezing night last night here in the 2023 fall season. It dipped slightly below freezing temperatures in the greater Ely area, and we woke up this morning to our first frost as well. That's going to be increasingly common as the days go on, and we enter the time of the year here in Ely where by midday you need a t-shirt, but morning you need your winter jacket. We have quite the temperature change on these days. It can get really hot still. In fact, just a week ago we were close to 90 degrees, and then again a week later we're hitting freezing at night. So quite dramatic change. The bears are very well adapted to deal with it. Even a soon frost that maybe happens a little sooner than we anticipate every year. Don't worry about the bears. Their double-lined thick fur coat will help keep them perfectly warm, if not help cool them off as well. So it is specially designed. It does have 2 layers to it, and it is one of the most insulative pelts in the animal kingdom that we know of, because bears not only have the 2 layers of fur and a really dense, thick underfur, but they also have a really low surface to body mass ratio, and that helps with heat loss. So extremely good insulator is bear fur. All righty, folks. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the broadcast for you. Anyone is more than welcome to hang out on the deck any longer than they'd like to. And also hang out in the window area. And again, we will announce bears as they approach the viewing windows. And I just want to thank everybody here at the center today for coming on out. All of you had to pay an admission price to be here. We are very appreciative of that, as we are a nonprofit. All that goes right back into caring for the bears and teaching people about them. And so basically you did make a donation today by visiting the center and paying that admission price. So thank you so much for being willing to spend time and money with us today. We appreciate it. And I know the bears can't thank you themselves, so I will do it on their behalf. Whether they outwardly expressed it or even showed up to the program today, they are happy to see you because, again, you pay the bills here. You're the reason they're getting the treats and stuff. So they will be more happy to see you on the tour. I can almost guarantee that because we do serve treats on those tours as well. The next tour will go out at the top of the hour, and we'll make announcements leading up to that as well. And thanks again, folks, that are tuning in online. We really appreciate your support from far and away, and we hope that you continue to log in even when we don't have bears in view. But thank you so much for being part of the broadcast as well. Thanks, everybody, and we hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their day.